Jamuk Morathi. Adventure level, not available. Dwarf. Calcuttin. Cinti, where are the quarry coats? I asked my assistant. My elf assistant's long blonde hair fluttered as she turned. Many a visitor had complimented me for my taste in women, assuming that I had hired Cinti for her looks. The thing is, I wasn't the one who hired her. I just didn't fire her back when I took office. A choice I almost regretted, as she gave me a blank stare. Quarry quartz? She asked. Oh, right. The quartz for the stone needed to repair the thoroughfare. Just a second. To call Cinti's organizational style chaotic would be an understatement. I sighed as she lifted a pile of fictional books to leaf through the files beneath them. Beneath the files were various office supplies that saw little use, likely due to the fact that they were hidden from view. I couldn't complain much though. Things may be chaotic, but it somehow works, and at a glance things appear fairly tidy. I wondered for a moment if she had been cursed by one of the fair folk. Something along the lines of, "You will never know organization again, but you can still keep things pretty clean." Probably not. That's awfully specific for a curse. Here they are, Mr. Mayor. I winced at the nickname as she handed me a few folders. It wasn't that it sounded tacky. It wasn't that it was alliterative. It wasn't even that the way she said it made it sound borderline flirtatious. No, there was a very specific reason the nickname bothered me, one that applied only to Cinti. My name is neither Mr. nor Mayor Cinti, I sighed. I know that. Sir? It's been 2 years and you've heard it said hundreds of times. That's why I totally know it, my lord. Do we need to get a nice big portrait of me with a nameplate in extra large font and hang it up where you can see it every day? I asked, almost serious. I said I remember your name, but that's actually a really good idea. Her slightly purple eyes turned towards the walls. We could get rid of the rickety old shelves that nobody uses and hang it up right over there. So you did forget my name? Well, no, I just... Alright, fine, yes, I'm sorry. She bowed apologetically. I'm just really, really bad with names. I've been your boss and the mayor of this town for 2 years, I sighed. Really, really bad doesn't even begin to cover it. Abysmal, atrocious, even those words don't quite do it justice. I know, she bowed again. I'm super sorry, sir. I'll work harder to remember your name. Bah! I flicked my wrist dismissively. Don't bother. Everyone else in town has it down. It's no big... Wait, you voted for me without knowing my name. Cinti, in the midst of another bow, looked up at me with abject terror in her eyes. It was the kind of look one gives someone who has stumbled upon a terrible secret. My slightly bemused expression shifted to one of shock. Well, you see, she mumbled. Cinti, please tell me that you vote. Yes, sir. I vote, sir. Now do it without lying. I can't, sir. Gods help me. I squeezed the bridge of my nose. The mayor's assistant doesn't vote. What nonsense is this? Loads of people don't vote, sir, she said softly. It isn't as if there's anyone but you to vote for either. The fact that I run unopposed is not the point, Cinti. The point is that voting is more than a right. It's a civic duty. But we don't get a vote for our lords or the emperor, so what's the point? Don't give me that nass shit. The fact of the matter is that I have a lot more power over this town than Lord Yav or Emperor Jack does. Huh? Don't harm me. They can order me to give orders. But do you think they would be willing to come here to ensure that I gave those orders? They probably wouldn't even bother to pay to send a messenger, so I'd be able to just burn the orders and pretend I never received them. They're so far removed from our day-to-day lives that they probably wouldn't even notice until our next round of elections. Really? Yes. Local politics are usually far more important to the average citizen than regional or national politics. If you're not paying attention to who is running, then you're likely to elect someone who's incompetent. Or worse, someone who's competent but has malicious intentions. It's dumb, Cinti. But I didn't vote for anybody, so I didn't elect anybody. Yeah, that's just putting the responsibility into someone else's hands. You don't know how many people out there are gonna make a good or bad choice, and by choosing to not make your voice heard, you're allowing other voices to trample your own. That's even dumber than not paying attention to who you're voting for.
Fine, Scinti said with a sigh as she took her seat. I'll vote in the next election, even if you run unopposed again.
Good. I nodded and turned toward my office door. Sorry for calling you dumb. I'll be in the office if you need me.
Where else would you be?
Good point, I chuckled as I entered my office. I closed the door behind me and took a seat at my desk. Telecom's mayoral office was much more modest than my previous office had been, but I found it to be more comfortable. Cozy even. It was definitely a little heavy on the brown though. My desk, the walls, and even the floor were made of the same type of stained wood. The rest of the building was stone, so entering my office for the first time was usually a little jarring. That was likely by design though, and I had used it as a tactic in various negotiations. With a deep breath in and out, I began to review the quotes. The road builders had wanted to purchase stone from a specific quarry, but the quarry in question was fairly distant from the town, and the cost had looked high to me. It didn't take long to determine that they were overcharging by a wide margin. Fucking amateurs, I chuckled. The road builders had likely been offered a kickback, and this was probably their first time participating in such a scheme. It's a pretty simple scam too. The quarry overcharges the city, and the builders get a cut of the extra profit. Expert grafters would have threatened to walk or offer me a bribe instead of allowing me the opportunity to look at extra offers. Such schemes are pretty common in the Empire of Calcutta, especially in municipalities that have inexperienced leaders. It's a fair enough practice so long as it doesn't toe the line of extortion or actual fraud. It would be best if these builders refrain from attempting this in the future though. I pored over the documents and found the best deal. A little extra stone than what was needed for less than a third of the original quote. I filled out the proper requisition forms and stamped them. The next step would be to subtly admonish the road builders for their part in trying to scam the town. The trick to such admonishment is to heavily imply that you are aware of the scheme and make them feel as if you are doing them a favor by not pressing the issue. It's a classic tactic that can instill loyalty, and sometimes it can even scare people into staying legitimate. It's not a guarantee, but even good people make mistakes. It's best to let them learn from their mistakes without anyone being harmed. Of course, that could just be a little bit of naivety talking.
Mr. Mayor, you have some visitors,
Scinti shouted. Do they have an appointment? I shouted back absent-mindedly.
Nope. They were sent by the bartender at the Venator's bureau. Why don't you let me send them in, you'll see why.
Scinti's ominous chuckle ignited my curiosity, but it's not good practice to allow walk-in visits from just anybody. Setting that kind of precedent can easily snowball into random people interrupting important tasks throughout the day, or worse, a line of visitors. On the other hand, the bartender in question is Snithin Olmaxi, who is actually the regional director of the Venator's bureau. His love of micromanagement and serving alcohol aside, he's a pretty shrewd orc. He probably wouldn't send someone my way unless he felt it was necessary. Fine, send them in, I shouted, then sighed. A moment later, my door opened and 3 dwarves entered my office. My initial impression was that they were fairly normal adventurers, but the appearance of the first dwarf made me hesitate for a moment. I couldn't quite put my finger on why, though. Hey, hold on a minute, the dwarf said. Jamuk? Yes. Wait. I studied him a bit more, then laughed. Golly! Little golly! What in the hells are you doing here? My younger brother asked. I thought you were working for the Emperor or something. Or something. I sighed and shook my head. I wasn't working directly for the Emperor. I was working for the Imperial Office of Taxation. Oh, right. So how did you go from that to being a mayor? I was sent here to conduct an audit. Turns out the previous mayor was embezzling funds like most mayors do. Unlike the other mayors, though, he was terrible at covering his tracks and I had to turn him in. Nobody else wanted to be mayor, so I felt that it was my civic duty to take on the responsibility. I explained, with an exaggerated air of nobility. Sure, Gully laughed. So which was it, the power or the money? Definitely the money. I gestured towards the stack of papers on my desk. I could do without the power, but this job pays a lot better than being an auditor. Did my ears deceive me, or did he call you Little Galley? The dwarf on the left said, with an impish grin. He can call me that, Rebus, Gully replied. It's his right as my blood and elder. If you call me that, though, you'll be found in the ditch not far from when you made that terribly fatal mistake. Galili not little,
a voice from behind my brother said.
He bigger than me, and I not little.
I raised an eyebrow and cocked my head at Gully. He suddenly seemed to remember the reason for his visit and gave me a wide grin. It was a grin that I hadn't seen for a long time. A very, very long time. As a matter of fact, the last time I had seen that particular expression on my brother's face, he had hidden a sting crab in my underwear. The swelling had prevented me from defecating for 3 days. Alright, let's make some room, he called over his shoulder. Marco, Ifrima, you wait outside. I planned on it, a rumbling voice said from outside my office. Fucking tiny dwarf buildings. Gully took a step closer to my desk, and I barely noticed his dwarven friends moving to either side of my office. Instead, my attention was directed onto what my brother's movement had just revealed. A small reptilian creature nervously stepped forward, holding a crown made of various detritus in his hands like a beggar. Jamuk Morathi, Mayor of Talokam and the surrounding municipality, I present to you Little Lord Samith, acting regent of the Talokam dungeon. Gully bowed with an exaggerated and likely sarcastic gravitas. Oh, how do you do? Was the reply I managed.
Do good. Little worried about being away from staffs,
the reptile replied.
You?
I'm good as well. Somewhat confused about the nature of this meeting, though. Samith needs a trade permit, Gully interjected. Well, another one. He already has an intermediary permit, but we're looking to get him and his kobolds the rights to open a store in the old abandoned manor on the edge of town. Kobolds? Trade permit? Wait, the Talokam dungeon? I trailed off as several key pieces of information clicked into place. Snithin, the kinfucker that he is, told me that an elderly and powerful mage had helped clear the dungeon of vampires and wanted to set up there to prevent any more monster nests from forming. I had pre-filled an intermediary trade permit so that the mage could barter for supplies with our passing caravans, and entrusted the regional director to get the permit signed by the mage. Not once during the entire process, including when he returned the signed receipt, did he mention kobolds. So who is this Lord Vilsmiro then? I asked with an annoyed tone. I take it that he isn't just some run-of-the-mill elderly mage. You haven't met him? Gully asked, then laughed. Larry Vilsmiro is the lich who helped us clear the vampires out of the dungeon. Samith here is his second in command. My little brother noticed my demeanor change at the word lich, and held up his hands in a disarming manner. Larry didn't become a lich by choice. His dad turned him into one, he explained. He's a good sort, I'll vouch for that. Before his dad turned him into a lich, My little brother vouching for him did little to assuage my fears, but listening to him ramble on about Lord Vilsmiro's life story gave me the chance to think it through. The lich had been in the dungeon for quite some time now, probably since the dungeon went inactive and stopped spitting out monsters. As such, one could infer that the lich is responsible for the dungeon's inactivity. That, combined with the fact that it hadn't opted to lay waste to our town, means Gully is probably correct in his judgment of the lich's character. Snithin is an even better judge of character, and he wouldn't help something that would harm the town or its people. And having a dickhead for a dad doesn't make you a bad guy. Gully finished his explanation. I don't know about that, I chuckled. We didn't exactly turn out to be shining examples of morality. Sure we did. I hunt monsters and keep people safe, and you're a goddamn mayor. We're a far sight from being bandits like our pa. That probably has more to do with our mother than our father. Speaking of monsters though, I can't grant a trade permit to one. It's illegal.
Me not a monster,
Samith said.
Me has thinks and words.
Plenty of monsters are capable of thought and speech, I argued. My hands are tied on the mat. No, he's right actually, the dwarf to my right interrupted. Kobolds are not technically monsters. They aren't even classified in any officially recognized imperial bestiaries. He no speaks true, Rebus added. It may be because hunting them isn't worth it, or it could be because they tend to stick to their own affairs. Either way, the law don't consider them monsters. I leaned back in my chair and studied the group standing before me. Allowing a kobold to set up shop in town could damage my reputation as mayor, but that would only matter if someone actually ran against me. On the other hand, it could be quirky enough to raise some extra tourism, especially if we advertised it a bit. What kind of store? I asked. A general store, wide variety of goods, Gully answered. Weapons? Yes. Food? Yes. What about medicine? Probably. Shit. That's a lot of paperwork, I sighed. What about narcotics? Gully turned to look at the kobold, who seemed to be following the conversation enough to be confused.
What's that?
It asked. A narcotic is a substance that affects one's mood or behavior. It can be eaten, drank, smoked, injected, or even snorted.
So, food?
No. Food can make you feel good, but narcotics usually make you feel better than good. I suppose the best way to describe it would be that it makes you feel like you're not your usual self.
Oh, well, we grow mushrooms. Some of them make stuff weird. The others go in the soup.
Well, you can sell the ones that go in the soup, I sighed. The ones that make things weird cannot be sold or traded. You can grow them, you can have them, and you can use them yourself, but you cannot trade them within the Empire of Calcutta. This includes bartering or adding them as an incentive to trade.
Gotcha. No giving nobody the weird-making mushrooms.
Good. Moving on, since you will be operating your store within the municipality, you will also have to keep detailed records of your transactions for taxation purposes. You will also need to set aside a portion of your profits to pay the aforementioned taxes. We can hire somebody to do that for you. Gully said to the kobold, then turned back to me. I assume this means you're willing to grant the permit. I can't think of a reason not to, I shrugged. However, there is a condition. You will need to purchase and renovate the manor. I'm tired of that damned eyesore and the rumours surrounding it. Okay, how much? 80 and 10. He knew when Rebus drew in a sharp breath. My brother froze for a moment, then rubbed the back of his neck. 80 silver and 10 copper? He asked timidly. No, I chuckled. 80 gold and 10 silver. The manor itself is mostly worthless, but it still has most of its precious metal trim, and the land it rests on will make one hell of a field. The only reason we haven't scrapped the manor and marketed the property as farmland is because I would need permission from Lord Yav, and he would charge a special tax for the destruction of a building commissioned by nobility. I don't think we can afford that, Gully said. You're gosh damn right we can't, the unnamed dwarf replied. We've got maybe 15 gold total, and that's after an entire winter of hunting.
I got 12 gold from the elves,
the kobold added. From the elves? I asked.
Yes, they comes from different place. They wanted to fight us in the dungeon, but we didn't want to fight, so they traded with us instead. Sold a bunch of stuffs. Oh.
The kobold paused to rub the back of his neck. What is it?
Well, we didn't know it was about the mush.
Stop talking. I held up a hand. As far as I'm concerned, if the transactions in question took place in the dungeon, it is no business of mine. However, if you tell me of your own volition that you sold narcotics, I am duty-bound to report you to the proper authorities.
Oh, okay.
Do you know where the coins come from?
South of here's what they said.
Likely Kivanaugh then. I sighed and leaned back. Kivanaugh coins have more precious metal content than ours do, but only by a third or so. We don't have banks big enough to offer mortgages around here, so I guess the municipality will have to back the loan. You're giving some me for mortgage? Gully asked with a laugh. Oh no, absolutely not, I grinned. I could never in a million years justify giving a loan to a kobold without a credit history. Then, what are you talking about mortgages for? You went through all the trouble of bringing little old Scifi here to my office, little Gully. My grin widened. I assume you want to see this venture succeed. Sure, but what? Gully was interrupted by Rebus's hysterical laughter. His confused expression turned from me to Rebus, then back to me. Then a metaphorical dawn shone upon his features. Wait, of course, one might see me giving my little brother a loan as a conflict of interest, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. No, hold on.
Oh, I see.
The kobold interrupted.
You give Gully the mortgage, and Gully buys the manor, then I pays him back with the profits. Then the kobold owns the manor, and we can has our own shitty store. City store.
Exactly, I beamed. Gully looked back and forth between my malicious grin and the excited kobold. It had been a long, long time since I'd been able to prank my brother, and I was relishing the moment. It was almost adequate as revenge with the sting crab. The prank also served to ensure that my brother wasn't just pulling my leg. If this is a serious venture, then Gully's name being on the mortgage won't matter at all. If Gully is just messing with me, though. Fuck, my little brother muttered under his breath.